Is it audible now?
Yes, ma'am, it is audible.
Yeah, but many messages, that's the reason. Is it okay? Okay, fine. Right, yeah. So what
Yes,
I'm
ma'am,
trying
it is
to discuss
audible.
in this particular case is,
Thank you.
yeah. So what we are trying to discuss is that we are talking about pretty good privacy. So this is again a solution which is made specific to the files and email kind of thing. You can integrate PGP with the email so that actually email will be applied with the security features, treating it as a file. Okay. So this is developed by the Philip Zimmermann, meant for email security, can be used for securing files. So mail is also treated like a file, and PGP is integrated with the mail systems are also available. Okay. What are the services it is providing? Authentication, confidentiality, compression, Radix 64 conversion for email compatibility. I will explain what is this, and segmentation. Okay, these are the services it is going to provide. Okay, now if whenever anyone want to use the PGP, generally what happens is the public keys are shared through the web of trust, not through the digital certificate. That means through the known people. When you know someone through the human notion of trust, you believe someone and get the public keys of that particular person, right? So that is how the public keys are shared through the known people, not through the digital certificate. It is meant for a smaller group kind of thing. So now once the keys are shared, then definitely the session keys and other things, hashing and other things will be applied. Let me explain this one. So message will go through the SHA algorithm. So first thing is like the message will go to the SHA algorithm, and then you'll get the message digest. Okay, fine. So now once the message digest is there, this message digest will be encrypted with the sender's private key. I think you understand now what we are trying to generate is a digital signature of this particular document, right? So first we pass through the hash algorithm, we got a fingerprint which is encrypted with the public private key algorithm, that is the RSA, with the sender's private key. So this will result in the signature. So now this signature which is along with the message, so will be the transmitted. Okay. So to compression stage. So if you are if you're not other things, if you don't want, then the first thing is it will go through the compression, which will give the message and signature. Now what is the next requirement? So now we have to encrypt it. Okay. So after this particular thing, compressed message. So what is that? With the symmetric key algorithm, the one-time session key is generated, so which is encrypted. Okay, session keys with this now symmetric key we are using it, which is encrypted, and just look at it. The session key has to be given to the other end. Now what happens? The session key whichever is generated with the encrypted with the receiver's public key. Okay, so now this encrypted message along with the receiver's public key, this would be transmitted. Okay, so this is how the things will happen at this thing. So what is done is, whenever a PGP is integrated email across close people, when they try to use this particular thing, the algorithm, the package will internally use these algorithms and IDEA, RSA, and even SHA-1, and then the public key will be shared by the people, which internally maintains through a data structure. PGP package internally maintains that. This will go, encrypted message and key will go to the conversion stage. Now the question is, what is the necessity of encoding or conversion, Radix 64 conversion and all. Now what I am telling is, like, see, this compressed message will go through email. Okay, when it goes through the email, what happens is that, so it may not be in acceptable form by the email systems. For that reason, what happens is it will be converted into the Radix 64 form, so that you'll bring it back the content into the email acceptable form. Okay, so now this is the Radix 64 conversion. So what happened? A group of 3 octets of binary data is mapped into 4 ASCII characters. Okay, so this is basically, you can understand later. The idea is to bring it back to the form which the email system will accept. Okay, because after you encrypt and all, it loses relevance. It may not fall into the same coding scheme. Okay, so that is the reason. But what happens? This may add up some kind of expanding the data by 33%. But because we are doing compression, that is getting balanced out. Okay, so this is how the PGP package works. If you are interested, like, we can use the GNU PGP package and try to understand this. And then a restriction on maximum size of message transmitted. So message also will be divided into segments, and the receiving end PGP package will try to remove the headers and then reassemble them. Okay, So these are the different authentication, confidentiality, compression, then conversion, and then segmentation and reassembly. These are the features supported by the PGP. Okay. So internally, see, when one PGP enabled client sends it to the other one, so the other PGP package should understand, right? So this is a standardization of the data structure. So where the session key will be stored, the session key will be encrypted with the receiver's public key, and signature where it is stored, file name, all these things, no, complete message will be stored here with the timestamp, data, file name, all these things. Okay. So this is how you can see that which part is protected with the sender's private key, receiver's public key, all these details, which is encrypted, which is compressed. Okay. And entire thing, once it is done, it will be Radix 64 converted. Okay. So this is the way the PGP is going to work. Now I think we keep using the secure shell. Okay. I think in our day-to-day operations, we always look for remote login. Secure shell is another network security protocol which is designed for enabling the secure remote login from one computer to the another. Okay. So internally, it will enable strong authentication through the public keys and also password. Password as well, public key is also successful, and it establishes the keys as well as the integrity, confidentiality, all those things. Okay. So especially whenever we can use it in replacement to our login and other things like that. Okay. So this is another thing, so which is of important to us. And another thing is, once again, no audio. I don't know what is the problem. I'll change the network itself. Just give me some time. Am I audible now? Okay, right. Yeah. So what we are trying to discuss is like, see, PGP is one thing which is meant for a specific purpose for files. Though we are integrating with emails, even email is also treated like a file. Okay. So it will provide different services, fine, which we try to understand. And then another important thing is, now we keep doing the remote login. So what happens when you do the remote login from your local machine, you connect to the remote machine so that you can log into that particular remote and do the administration and other remaining other things. Okay. Now what happens on your local machine, there is a client component, and the remote machine, there is another server component which will try to handshake and help you to do the login. Now the secure shell SSH is enabled with the security protocol. The same remote login, all activities you can do, but it is enforced with the security. So here it is enabling strong authentication, the even public certificate kind of thing, public key enabled kind of thing, authentication is done, integrity, confidentiality, all these things are enabled, and then you can use it, okay, across the two machines. Okay, so this is another important thing for us. So the next thing which is important to all of us is a secure socket layer. I think all of us would have used this SSL in our web access, so where you see the URL HTTPS, right? Okay. Now what is this basically? Whenever you try to connect from your browser to a web server, so some of the services are mandate that they have to be accessed only through HTTPS. But in some cases, maybe it's not that much important. Like maybe they'll allow both the ports, 80 as well as 443. But definitely prefer to have the access only through the security. So now normally any web communication, whenever you do, you enable port 80 at the server. Now if it is coming through HTTPS, so what happens? The port which is enabled at 443. So what happens is from the browser to the web server through this port, all the necessary handshake take place so that the security parameters and other things are set up, and then the communication will happen. Okay. So initially it is developed by Netscape. You might have heard about Netscape browser and other things initially for client server applications, which works at 443. And whenever you use this particular thing, it will be changed to HTTPS : like this URL. Okay. So where it is deployed, normally if you look at the layer at which it is deployed, secure socket layer resides just above the transport layer. That means, see, what we have done is, irrespective of the application, whether it is a FTP application or telnet or web application or something else, so a layer is created just above the transport layer, so which will enable the security of any application. So all the network security requirements, that authentication integrity, they are enabled through the socket layer, which is just above the transport layer, so that any of the application can make use of. That is the target of this particular thing. Okay. Now we know that it is popular with HTTP, that HTTPS is there. So similarly, we can use it for FTP, secure FTP. So like that, and if you design your own client server application, you can integrate OpenSSL library in your application so that you can enable the same thing. That's how, like just above the transport layer, it is standardized and made it as a library. So SSL protocol has got actually 4 sub-protocols: handshake protocol, then chain cipherspec protocol, alert protocol, and record protocol. Handshake protocol, chain cipherspec protocol, alert protocol, and record protocol. Just I will explain you in detail. It's very interesting. So the client, see, now this is the client and server. Now let us assume that we have enabled the secure socket layer, that is HTTPS, for our from the browser to that some banking site we are trying to connect. It is enabled. Internally, before the actual data flows between the two, after the connection is established, what happens is the security will be enabled. See, authenticating both the ends, then exchanging the keys, all the things will be done, exchanging the algorithms, and once all these things are done, then actually the communication will start flowing. Okay. The client will send the client hello message from client to server. Okay. So this is the part of the protocol. This is the handshake protocol. I just mentioned in the previous slide, handshake, chain cipherspec protocol, and other things, right? So handshake is the exhaustive protocol where all the security parameters will be exchanged. Okay. So first client hello, where it will tell what is the version of SSL, timestamp, time at which, and IDs of cipher suit list, whatever the cipher suits which are available. Server sends the server hello message indicating the version, timestamp, ID of selected cipher suit. What is the selected cipher suit out of the list which is sent, which have to be used for this communication. And it will also give the server X-Point, the 509 enabled certificate. See, now whenever you try to connect to any service, first we should verify the service. See, someone has to verify the server, and they would have enabled a certificate for that particular thing, right? Otherwise, what happens, without our knowledge, we may be connecting to the fake banking sites and other things like that, right? So people may lure you to connect to the links which may be slightly different, and you may be driven to the fake certificate. Okay. What is required? The certificate which is given by a trusted party will be sent, so that server is enabling the client, that is a browser, to verify that, so that they allow trust on the service. Then now we know that the Diffie-Hellman key exchange or other key exchange protocols, there is some public information will flow, and there is some local information. Like in case of Diffie-Hellman, PK1, PK2 kind of thing are made, right? So client server key exchange details will flow, and if server want to verify even client certificate, most of the time it is not done, because everyone will try to connect from their browsers to the service and all in most of. But in the few cases where there is required, the client also is required to send this thing, and server will say server hello done. That means all the messages have moved to the client. Okay. Now the client will, if it has requested for the certificate, it will push it to the server, and client also will try to share the information. And after verifying the certificate, it will verify status, it will give. And then once all these things are done, the client says that it will send the next protocol. Up to this point is basically a handshake protocol. Chain cipherspec protocol message it will send, telling that yes, now I am agreeing to this particular content, whatever we exchanged till now. I am agreeing to this algorithm, and I am agreeing to the keying material. Now any communication happens with the client and server, I use the security parameters and secure the communication, and say finished. Similarly, server also says that chain cipherspecs, I am also agreeing, and then finished. Now if you look at all these messages, there are two protocols here, handshake protocol and one message chain cipherspec protocol, which is part of handshake. So with this, what happened? The security parameters are enabled between the client and server, verified, authentication is done, key exchange is done, algorithm cipher suit negotiation is done, and then verification of the server is done, and then now both are ready for interacting, okay, for communicating between the two. Now, whatever the application data is sent between the client and server, now the security will be applied through the record protocol. So what is the record protocol? When application data comes, it will fragment. I think it is up to 64K is the maximum size, not more than that. It will apply compression algorithm, and then a message digest that will be done, encrypt that particular thing, append its own header, and then it will try to push it toward the channel. So that is how record protocol actually applies the security. Handshake protocol and chain cipher spec will enable the security requirements across the two. And alert protocol is meant only for giving the warnings. Actually, any kind of error messages, there are standard errors and other things are defined. Now, after the SSL becomes popular, now there is it is made as the transport layer security standard for next generation of SSL. IETF formed the TLS working group to create an internet standard protocol for security above transport layer. And difference from how is it different from SSL is it has got now it is standardized. Whenever they standardized, like it has version number, cipher suit, more algorithms are added, more alert codes, and padding, different length padding is also done, because that helps actually, like the adversaries not to get the details about. Sometimes they may not do the traffic analysis if you try to make the random padding length and other things like that. Okay, so that is how that SSL initially, which is started, that is made as a transport layer security, and there is a IETF working group which continuously improves this particular. Okay, now that is what is there enabled with our web server to see, which is used for any client server communication, whether it is FTP client to FTP server, or telnet client to telnet server, or web browser to the server. We can enable this particular. Okay, the similar lines, we have something called as the IPsec. Okay, IP layer security, whatever is enabled. Okay, normally what we do is that it is we say that it is used for creating virtual private network. It is not exactly VPN. IPsec alone will be used for VPN. Even SSL also is a kind of VPN, right? But SSL provides a VPN between the client server, virtual private network over the public network in both the cases. Okay, between the client and server, by enabling the security, we are creating an illusion that there is a private network through which it is going. It is going through the public, but we are enabling required security. Okay. So, but VPN generally, or IPsec is basically where we use it generally across the gateways, across two different networks. So when they are interacting over the public network, okay, across the branches and other things like that, or people are trying to work from home. Okay, this is something where we'll deploy this particular thing. Can be used for protection between pair of host. Pair of host, though it is done at limited manner, but pair of security gateways, routers, firewalls, and security gateway and host. When you look at the work from home option and other things like that, from the desktop up to the company, the gateway, we will try to enable that. Okay, like that, the IPsec is where security is enabled at the IP layer. Okay, so IPsec is a framework for security operating at the network layer based on standards developed by the IETF again. So it's the standard group is there, and what all services it will provide: access control. See, it is a connectionless integrity which we need to understand. See, now when I talk about SSL, SSL network security is enabled through SSL through the logical connection established between the client and server application. So it will have connection integrity. So the order of the content, everything will be safeguarded. That integrity can be taken care. Whereas connectionless integrity, in the sense, IP is not a connection-oriented service. IP is a connectionless. So at the datagram level, whether it is the integrity is safeguarded or not, to that level it will be done. Okay. Data origin authentication, rejection of replayed packets, data confidentiality, and then by encrypting some details, you can even provide limited traffic flow confidentiality, because some headers and other things you will try to hide them. Okay. So IPsec operates at this thing. It has got two protocols. One is authentication header, and another is encapsulating security payload. So you can configure at the gateway either authentication header or encapsulate. If you are looking for a strong authentication, you go for authentication header. You are looking for reasonable authentication with encryption, then you go for encapsulating security payload. Sometimes a combination of these two are also configured into the network. So what happens is, now if you look at it, IP is a connectionless service. So that means whenever you say that there are two gateways, across two gateways you enabled IPsec, there is no session established between the two. The communication will happen as a outgoing packets to that particular gateway and incoming packets coming from that particular gateway. Now, what is required is, at that IPsec level, we need to enable security association, telling clearly that simplex connection, that means one directional communication, what are the kind of security requirements need to be enabled. For bidirectional communication, it's not a session. It's only, it treats as incoming packets, outgoing packets. So for incoming packets, it's one connection, simplex connection, outgoing packets is another simplex. So we need to have two security associations for taking care of the bidirectional communication. What the security association will tell is basically, it will have an identifier to detect, uniquely identify that particular thing. And when you interact with that particular IP, the destination address, what is the kind of security, what keys need to be enabled, that is the kind of thing. Okay, so that means with that particular IP address, particular destination, what kind of protocol is enabled and what kind of keys need to be stored, all these details will be stored in the security association. Similarly, for incoming packets, when you receive data from the remote IP, what is to be enabled. So all these things will be stored in the database. And again, this particular IPsec can be configured either in the transport mode or tunnel mode. Okay, so transport mode is more of end-to-end, and the gate, when you do at the gateway to gateway kind of thing, then it is more of tunnel. I'll just explain this. So what happens is, whenever you try to communicate from A to B, okay, so in the transport mode, what we are trying to do is, see, now encrypted this thing, data or the data comes here, okay, so which will be passed through this and then to this. Okay, I'll show the header, then you'll be able to understand. Now you look at it, at A and B, the IPsec is configured, okay, in the transport mode. Clear? Now what happened, that means security features are applied here itself, A and B. Now at A, there is the details configured that whenever you interact with B, then this is the kind of security to be enabled. So what happened, that those kind of things are enabled. Now original IP and this particular thing, okay, see this IPsec header is added, IPsec header is included, so which will have the details about what is the kind of IPsec encrypted in this particular thing, right? Now what happens is, when you come to this particular, just 1 minute. Yeah, 1 minute. Yeah. So what happens in this particular case is, it will not, it will just not disturb the original this thing. Header will remain as it is. That is A to B communication. Everything will happen as it is. That IPsec header is introduced here. Okay. Now when it flows through the gateway, what it will do is, it will just use the as per the original IP header, it will route it to this particular thing and then send it to the, okay. So that's it. Now what happen is, in this case, because the details, the header details and all are open in this particular case. Okay. So just look at it. So this is the original IP header. After applying the authentication header, it will maintain that integrity for the entire thing and it will add it, but the original IP and all is not hidden. It is still open. Okay. So authentication in the, see now in the transport mode, encapsulating security protocol, encryption if you want to add, here also original IP will be open. It will not be hidden. So in the ESP, actually you are also going to encrypt. If you want, this entire thing will be encrypted and integrity will be taken up to this point. This any changes done in this particular thing can be detected. So the gateways and all will be able to route the details properly. Coming to the tunnel mode, what happens is, A to B, entire channel is not encrypted. From A, the details will come as a normal. Original IP, TCP and data. This is what is the normal thing which is received. Once it receives the gateway, okay, this is, see now IPsec is configured at this particular gateway. So what it will do, it will try to enable the security. It will add its own IPsec this thing header. And now it will add the new IP header, which is indicating that interaction between these two gateways. Now a tunnel is created. Now this communication, only this new IP header giving the details about this gateway and this gateway is opened. All other things are here. Okay. So this will go through the tunnel. One receives the gateway. Gateway will try to, destination gateway will use the IPsec header. It will open up and then based on the original IP, it will route it to that particular thing. So security is enabled. See, the idea is, most of the time internal to the network we are secured. We are worried about creating a tunnel over the public network. So that's the thing. Okay. So based on the, if it is authentication header, just what happened, you look at it, AH and the new IP header. New IP header will store the details about gateway IPs. And original IP, everything will be as acting as a payload hidden inside that. And if you want to encrypt, then what happens? In the other mode, you can even encrypt this particular thing. If you are looking only for authentication or encryption, or both based on that you can always configure this one. Okay. So generally the handles the key management is required. So typically need 2 pairs of keys, as I told, 2 per direction and also for H and EHP. You can manually configure because it is not a session where the protocol will take care internally like SSL. It is not like, okay, it's a connectionless. Or automated, you can normally what happens is, in addition to that, you'll be running some UDP based service across the gateways, which will enable the keys across that. They are normally placed on automated system for on-demand creation of keys for security association larger systems. Okay, there are something like Oakley and ISA-KMP kind of protocols which are meant for automatic key management across that. Okay, Oakley is a key management protocol, so it will not happen within the session like SSL because it is a connectionless service. It has to happen through a separate one. So it is a key exchange protocol based on UDP. I think it is runs at 500 or something, and it is based on the Decipherment key exchange. ISA-KMP is more of a framework, okay, for the IPsec, where it will not define that you should use only this key exchange protocol like that. Internet Security Association and Key Management Protocol provides framework for key management. It defines procedures and packet formats to establish, negotiate, modify, and delete security associations. Okay, all the standard procedures are done, and independent of key exchange protocol and encryption algorithm and authentication. Okay, so this is a kind of thing which is used more standard. Okay, so that is about the IPsec. I think hope I covered whatever I need to cover in this particular thing. So if you have anything, you can any queries, you can have it, or else